Welcome everyone. So today in this episode with Walk with Loga, today we're going to talk about our experiences with learning English and the challenges, the methods that we have used, like in overcoming our difficulties, and we're just going to talk about our experiences so far, and maybe you guys can relate with us about your journey in learning with English. So. Let's get started with the host itself, Venerable Lobsang Gilson.
Thank you very much, Onila, for hosting this discussion.
Thank you.
So, as he already mentioned, so today we are going to discuss about how we learn English as a second language.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also ask the questions,
yeah, okay.
And then I can, if I have any question, I will ask back to you.
Maybe I think I can just start with myself, and maybe you can jump in and we'll just start with conversations.
Nice.
So I think with most of me and my friends, we started learning English with kindergarten. They started us with teaching small alphabets, but I think with my real journey with learning English, it started because we learn English in class, but we don't practice the conversations, right? So I think that particularly started when I started talking with my friends. So back when I was in school, I had one or two friends who were actual English. His name is Tashi. His parents are from Netherlands. So every time, I was so excited to go to their house, because unlike Tibetan family, they have different cultures, traditions. Like they celebrate Christmas, Easter eggs, all this stuff. So I was really, as a child, I think I was really excited to go to them. And I started talking to them more and more, and watching documentaries, small cartoon movies, and from there I started talking to them in English more and more. And then that's, I think, how my journey with actual conversation in talking English started. I think that's with me, I think, how it has been. Tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, so I was born in northern side of India, in a very remote area.
Is this Spiti?
Yes, in Spiti.
Okay.
So there is a English medium school, and then I used to go there until 5th grade, and then I became a monk, so I left my school in 2004. In my lifetime, I've studied English in a very rare period. So I didn't get that opportunity to involve in English practice. So that's why it takes me a long time to get into it. But now I am trying my best to learn something, and then if I compare my experience before and now, I can totally understand that there is a learning process which we have to follow, and also the learning English as a second language is very complicated. We cannot just suggest other that you can do this and you will improve your English. There is nothing particular process that you can follow, right? So there is a multiple choice. So which really suits to you, you have to go with that. That is how I experience.
Okay, so tell me about what worked for you. So there are a plethora of options. There's so many options of learning English, right? So what worked for you?
So that is a huge question. Actually, what particularly you want to ask about the speaking skills, writing skills, whatever.
I think I'm talking about the conversations, the speaking skill. What helped you the most into becoming better?
Yeah. So back in India, I think I never get that kind of opportunities to speak with the foreigners, right? And then I came here in 2021. Then I get to involve in many different programs, such as one of them is in we call it casual cross-culture conversation in in-town coffee shop. That really helps me, and also in our school we have tea talk sessions. So we used to go there and then we talk with a random person about their culture and their interesting lifestyles and everything. So through that, I think I learned a little bit.
Okay. So if I talk about my experience, I think it's quite similar to yours, but to be more specific, I think what really helped me was, like I mentioned earlier, like I had this one friend So he was white. He was like from Netherlands. So he hardly speak Tibetan. He understand Tibetan, but he hardly spoke Tibetan because as a kid we would make fun of how kids are. They make fun of each other. So, but he would understand in English. So I would practice myself English with speaking English with him. And every time I watch, small clips of cartoons or whatever, there are some wordings that are nice, like some vocabularies that I find really interesting. So I would use with him, and his mom would correct me from time to time. So I think from that journey, and then as time progressed, talking outside of that boundary, like maybe tourist, because Dharamsala was a really touristy place back in 1990s. So yeah, talking to other people helped. I think talking to other people, just random strangers, really just helped a lot for me to becoming better at speaking.
Yeah. So before I came here, I have some sort of ideas, to learn English, but still we know that it is so challenging for us to build our communication skills there in India, especially in monasteries. We usually talk in Tibetan, or sometimes we talk in Hindi too, but there is a very limit period that we talk in English. So when I started my learning English, people used to say like you have to focus less on grammar and more like random talks. You don't need to think about all the sentences very grammatically true and rest of like that. So I think sometimes we feel like we have to get involved in grammatical ways to talk with others, but still there is something we can explain to others that we have to learn grammar in certain way, but not to involve yourself into it.
Okay.
So what do you think? Is it grammar so important to learn when you just started
learning
to
English?
build your communication skills?
That's actually a really good question. I think I can relate to it because I think I have myself have gone through this process. Would you like some Red Bull?
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So if I tell you about,
so we will energize ourselves a little bit.
Yes, let's toast to this great conversation.
Yeah,
and then,
cheers for that.
Oh, we should have bought more Red Bull. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.
I think I can talk about my experience on this, and then like you said, if you focus too much on grammatical, then I think you would lose the train of thought. I think you would you would hesitate.
Lose the flow.
Yeah, exactly. You would lose the flow, and then you would focus more on the wording and the grammar rather than trying to actually speak, right? But at the same time, I think grammatical structure is very important. So if you have a partner who actually knows English, right, and who's quite good with grammars, I think so. What helped me was when I was speaking, when I was building my English vocabulary and conversation skills. My friend's mom is an English teacher, right? So every time as you speak in a very funny grammar, she'll be like, no, so you say this. And then I would continue, and then so I think what would help is if you continue, there will be a time where you would make grammatical mistakes, right? But I think if you have somebody who knows English, and if you keep conversing with him, keep talking to him, regardless of whether you make mistakes or not, and if that friend points out those mistakes, I think that really helps. So I would suggest just try it out, but at the same time you need to have some sort of basic English sentencing structure to it. For example, you cannot say like, hey, let's went to football playground, right?
Yeah, right.
That doesn't make sense. So the way that I use it, before I speak, if I run the sentence in my mind, I play the sentence in my mind. So if that sentence does not make sense, or this doesn't look nice, or doesn't look correct in my brain, I don't say it. For example,
at the same time, sometimes I feel like this kind of thoughts, like if you say something grammatically wrong, then you always resist yourself to talk with others. So that really makes too much, what can I say, lose your interest. So better when you are a beginner, just speak out whatever comes in your mind. That doesn't matter. You are not doing such a big deal with it. So you are just in your own learning process. So rather it is nice to be yourself, whatever comes you can just speak it out, even if it's wrong or right, you can correct it later, when you get to know something that you are doing wrong. So that is, I think, the best process or the best method to improve yourself.
Yeah, I think I can exactly relate to it. And at the same time, nowadays everybody has a cell phone, right? And every cell phone or mobile device have a recording app on it. You can always record yourself talking to something. And like as if you mentioned, maybe try talking about different subjects, like what are your hobbies, or like for starters, what are your hobbies? Introduce yourself. And then, for example, why do you like that particular hobby? How was your day? What did you do? If you try to talk about it and then record it and listen to that, then maybe you can point out the grammatical the mistakes, and then you can improve upon those. And then I think slowly, you can. Anything is always good to have a conversation partner, to talk with it, regardless of your mistakes. Just keep talking. And maybe at the same time watching something on I don't think focusing too much on the accent is very important at the beginning of learning a conversation. It's more about the flow, the structure, so forget about the accent for a while. Just try to get a good
Fluency.
A good fluency.
Yes, you're right. So hesitation is some sort of very big challenges for the beginners too. So like for me, I mean that when I am in a large group of people, then somebody talks very good in my friend circle, then I feel hesitated. Then I lose all my confidence, and it was some sort of like I'm not able to talk with them. That word doesn't come out, and many things going on my mind. I'm translating back to back in my mind and cannot speak. So that's somehow I struggled when I started learning English.
Yeah, I think anybody who learns a new language can relate to whatever you're saying. But one way that I think like now when I look back at my journey, I think I would have been much better if I started this way early. Like, if you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake because you're learning, right? And you should not take yourself too seriously about you're making mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, then how are you going to improve? So make mistakes, don't take yourself too seriously. And if you're in a big group cycle and you make mistakes, just laugh it out, or maybe you can ask some people what does this, how do you say this, or and I think the more you take yourself less seriously, the more mistakes you make. I know it's a very uncomfortable situation. Obviously, when I was growing up as a kid, I would feel really embarrassed when somebody corrects my accent. They'll be like, if I say Island, which is island, they'll be like, you sing Island. I used to feel so embarrassed that I wouldn't even talk for 2-3 days. But at the same time, I know it's very a difficult thing to say for anybody who's learning English, that just accept your mistakes and move on. But I think the more you do it, or the more mistakes you make, you're only going to improve. And it's always good to have, maybe for the initial stage, to have a good friend circle who always encourages you, who always talks with you. I think that's a good start, I think.
So English is just a language which everybody wants to learn. So that is a process. So we all should be so humble with others who are beginners, right? So that is some kind of thoughts I really had. And then what about the fluency? How you define fluency?
I think, to be honest, right now, my definition of fluency would be if I can speak what is in my mind, I think that's you have a good fluency in English. The accent is something that you pick up, right? Whether if you want to change accent, you can learn accent. But I think fluency, what matters is, for example, the difficult challenge for most of the people who have like English as a second learning language is that they are not being able to speak what is in their mind. So, for example, our first language is Tibetan, right? So, if I want to say something about, or maybe I'm frustrated, or maybe I'm having a bad day, I think I can express much better in Tibetan, because when we speak in Tibetan, we think in Tibetan and we speak in Tibetan, right? But with English as a second language, what happens is we speak in Tibetan and we think in Tibetan and we speak in English. So the translation process, right? Sometimes what we do is we just translate directly, and that's where the gap is. So I think, if you can overcome that gap, if you can think and speak in English, and I think that's what fluency is for me. Accent, I don't think it matters, to be honest, because English is such a big, it's a huge language, because every culture, every nation would have their own accent, like UK, US, Australian, so I think rather than the accent part, you should more focus on try to express your thoughts, and if you can do that in English, I think that's what you should strive for.
Yeah, yes, you can say that again. So the definitions of fluency, I feel like until you stop translating the words in your brain, that means you are not fluent in that language. So when you express yourself without translating anything in your brain, that means you are fluent. So that's how I define the fluency. And then excellency is something which you are very rich in vocabularies, and rest of it. So there are a lot of words. Still, I stuck many times when I speak in English. So this is something like there are a lot of vocabularies I know, and then I can understand those words. But when it comes to speak, those words are not active in my brain.
Okay.
So I couldn't use that.
Okay.
So how do you, work with this kind of problems? This kind of challenge is not a problem.
I think I don't know about other people, but I have the same problem too. So when I watch some movie, or when I read something, and I see some really nice word, and I want to use that word, but it doesn't come to me right away when I talk. So that's a challenge itself. The way that I tackle, or the way that I work with it, is like, it may not work for everybody, but the way that I do is I always try to look at the meaning of the word first, and then try to see how the word is used in a particular sentence. For example, there's this particular word called epiphany. So it's something like, sometimes all of a sudden you have this, like, this thought, and then I had a difficult time trying to put that word into sentences for a while. But I think, like, as you see more and more, or like maybe you read more, you see that word using into sentences a lot, and then you started forming your own sentences. I think that's one way to do it. That's the way that I learned. So all of a sudden I'll be like, I had an epiphany about this. So I think the only way to do that is, like, try to see as much example as possible, and then try to incorporate into your day-to-day life. I think it's very simple, but I think that's how I normally do it. Maybe you have something else for your...
No, people recommended different ways to learn communication skills, and also to improve your communication skills. Listening skills is very important. It plays such a good role, right? So people recommended to watch some English movies, and also listen to the podcast, and also there are a lot of ways. And some people even say, like, you have to listen song. That will also help you to improve your English. But I have a little doubt on it.
The songs?
Yeah, I used to listen a lot of English songs, but I didn't feel like that helps me in my learning process.
Okay. With I think I can agree with, because I think it may not work for you, right? Maybe when I used to listen to songs back in my high school days, there were times when there was some really nice lyrics, and I could see myself, using those stuff. But maybe it doesn't work for you.
Oh. So do you agree with if you watch the movies that help us to improve our listening skills or communication skills?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, because even with movies, for example, if you watch a UK movie, the accent will be different. A US movie, the accent will be different. So the more you listen to different accents, the more you'll be able to understand, right? There may be subtle differences. So I think I can agree with that.
Yeah. So watching movies, actually, there are certain ways to watch movies. Some people watch the movies just to entertain themselves, and some people watch not just for entertainment. They also wants to learn something from that movie, particularly, right?
Like what?
So some people, what do they do is they put the subtitles, and then when they watch, they don't understand anything. They just look at the subtitles and pick up the words, and then go to dictionary, search for that, and then they do practice. So that is some kind of, as I feel like, some kind of learning process. But some people just do for entertainment, and then they expect to learn something from that. That usually doesn't work.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay.
So, do you have any ideas to watch the movies that helps you to build your communication skills?
I think, like you said, it's just going to be my opinion. But I think if you start watching, obviously, if you're a beginner and then you watch something, let's say like a Friends season, that's like a popular sitcom for many people to watch learning English. I don't think you can follow the conversation right away, because sometimes they speak fast, sometimes they use American slang, so you will not get it, right? So even if you're a beginner, like maybe if it's just for the sake of fun, you may not get the whole joke, right? So having a subtitle is a good way for you to actually understand and catch along with it. But once you get the hang of it, then, for example, once you're fluent in English, you don't put subtitles unless you don't follow the conversation, and I think that's completely fine, And I think watching something even for the sake of fun, it's also cool, because if you can understand the context or the movie, even if it's for the sake of entertainment, if you can understand that means you know the language, right? That means you are understanding it. I think that's a good thing,
Yeah. Usually I really don't like to watch movies on Netflix or whatever the platforms I use. But I always
you don't watch movies?
I watch movie, but not often, maybe 1 or 2 times in a week, something like that. But I really love to go with web series and also some sort of documentaries, also animations, right? Animes, yeah. So these are really helpful for me to improve my communication skills.
But animations are mostly
for kids.
No, they're mostly. Oh, you mean animation movies or series?
Animation movies or
okay.
Yeah. So these are really helpful because in the real movies, they always use a lot of idioms and phrases, slangs, So those are very hard to learn,
catch.
Hard to catch, yeah. And then if you go with animes, they usually use the casual words, which is very relevant to our daily conversation. So I feel like that one is more reliable for us to watch if you are a beginner.
Okay.
So then you can just go step by step. So what do you think about that?
I mean, like you said earlier, there's no definitive way to learn English. Whatever works for you works for you. But like you said, there are certain things that you can improve upon, right? For example, listening is a good thing, reading is a good thing. I think reading is something that people should pick up, because the more you read, the more you can understand the grammatical aspects of it. You'll be able to use some words that you don't know earlier. Like your vocabulary will be also increase. I think reading something is definitely some people should pick up reading, even if it's from a small kid's book to a novel. Try, but with anime and the movie stuff, I could relate to it, because growing up I didn't watch like James Bond right after the box. I started watching like small cartoon movies on Cartoon Network, like Scooby-Doo, Dexter, Pokemon and stuff. And then from then on, like I slowly graduated into some animation movies, and then to like actual Hollywood movies. So I think like depending on what your level is, like pick a genre, start watching, start listening, start practicing. There is no right or wrong way, I think, into learning English. The more you practice, the more mistake you make, the more you will learn. Yeah.
So when you started learning English, I guess that you have faced a lot of challenges.
Right. Yeah.
And then my question is, how you faced those challenges, and what was your, at that time, what was your mindset? How would you like to work on that?
I think it's a really important question. So to keep it really simple and short, I think when you, for example, learning a second language itself is a very difficult job for many people, because it's when you're taking on a whole new sort of conversation skills and language and alphabets and all this stuff. So it's not easy. So the first thing I would say is like surround yourself with people that always encourage you. And if you make mistake, that person should, even if they make fun of you, that's fine. But if they correct you and if they help you, that's the sort of kind of person that you should surround yourself. Because I think the initial phase is very important, and you don't want to surround yourself with people who only just make fun of you and gives you nothing in return. You should avoid those people. I think, like you have mentioned earlier, so surround yourself with people who encourage you. And the second thing is you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. So be comfortable with making mistakes. The more, I know it's not an easy thing to say. It's easier said than done. So make more mistakes, and every time you make mistake, it's fine. So just make sure to note your mistakes, record them, and try to work on them. And your mindset, like you said, just keep a very positive mindset. Don't take yourself too seriously. You're learning a language, you're a beginner, so when you make mistakes, it's fine. Own your mistakes. Don't take yourself too personally. So own your mistakes, work on them, and just enjoy the process of learning.
So sometimes hesitation, shyness, and ego also, those kind of emotions really play a huge role in our learning process.
Exactly.
So a moment when we feel shy, then we are not able to talk with others. You always feel like, oh, I am the worst, and then you always put yourself down.
Right.
So that is also a huge challenge for us. And also another one is like the ego. So whenever people correct you, and then you really don't want to listen from them, or you really don't open your mind for them. So that will be a huge challenge, as I faced myself.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching our episode on learning English conversation, and I hope you guys enjoyed our small discussion. So please like, share,
and subscribe.
comment and subscribe.